Is this a great game or what? With the Hall of Famer Tim Kurkjian, I'm his son Jeff Kurkjian, and Dad, you're looking tan after a weekend in California. Look at you go.
Jeff, I have that swarthy Mediterranean look anyway, and anytime I spend any time in the sun, I tan up pretty well. It doesn't do me any good, Jeff, but I was in San Diego for 3 days. It was so good, and I love where we live in Maryland, Jeff, but it is really hot and humid here during the summer. San Diego was spectacularly beautiful for 3 days. And I must say, Jeff, Petco Park, and I tell you all the time, and these are my favorite parks. Petco really is a great ballpark to watch a game. And I've told you before that I think Philadelphia is the best, venue there is for crowds and energy. But I'm telling you, Petco sells out like every night. People love it. And they should, because it's a great ballpark. It's a pretty good team. It's right downtown. Jeff, our hotel was right across the street from the ballpark. It took me literally 30 seconds to walk from my hotel into the stadium. I gauge, ballparks based on how close is it to the hotel. 30 seconds. Fantastic.
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, Dad, you took us out to San Diego. We went to Petco Park. We went to Legoland, Dream Trip, SeaWorld. So it was like we did everything from baseball to Shamu. It was fantastic. But I remember that trip so well that I always told myself I wanted to move to San Diego because I felt it to be the most beautiful place in the continental United States when it comes to weather. So I meet my wife, Emily, in Las Vegas. I'm doing radio out there, right? She's born and raised in Vegas, but both of her parents grew up in San Diego, and basically all of her siblings live in San Diego. And I remember on like our second or third date, we got to talking, and without knowing her family was out there, it kind of came up, and she's like, well, radio, like, do you know where you want to live? One day I said, I always wanted to move to San Diego. And it's just like anything else, right? Like only I can call my baby ugly kind of thing. She's been to San Diego 100,000 times. Her family lives there. So she's like, oh, you don't want to go to San Diego. Like, what are you talking about? And I said, that would be amazing. But since she's just so used to it, right? Like it isn't special to her. Like for her, moving out to Philadelphia and having trees and forests and not just sand and dust everywhere was like magical. Whereas I grew up out here. So to me, this is kind of it. And we've been having some humid days at San Diego. Did you have any humidity this weekend?
No, and it was nice and cool in the morning and nice and cool in the evening. It was just spectacular. And of course, Jeff, I covered 3 major league games. Nothing makes me happier than that. Rangers Padres on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Sunday night, of course, we broadcast the game on ESPN. It was so much fun.
Yeah. So, and I feel really bad, Dad, because my wife, Emily, and we watch you every Sunday night that you're on Baseball Tonight on ESPN. It's usually a 6 p.m. start time for Baseball Tonight, and then you throw it over to Carl, Eddie, and David Cohn in the booth for the 7 o'clock game. Emily tells me, oh, yeah, Pop-Pop's game is not until 9 o'clock. And I may be 31 years old, but I'm 91 when it comes to my bedtime, Dad. I don't know the last time I saw 9 o'clock besides this weekend when I was at my buddy's wedding. The wedding ended at 11. It was 40 minutes to get back to the hotel on the bus. And there was an after party that we went to. I was like a zombie at this bar. Dad, I have completely changed. I used to be doing more shots in the bar than Kevin Durant. And now I showed up to the bar. I bought the bride and groom, my buddy Aaron and his now wife Meg, espresso martini. And then I basically got 2 waters and left.
Jeff, join the club. It's going to get worse as you get older. Believe me, I fall asleep as early as I can every night. So you'll appreciate what happened during the game. This was the dumbest thing ever. But Roxy Bernstein is our play-by-play guy, and he knows everything about music. So I thought I would, surprise him on the air that the Rangers have a reliever named Chris Martin, and he's the lead singer for Coldplay. And Roxy on the air is like absolutely stunned that this guy sitting next to him, 68 years old, who doesn't know anything, drops a Coldplay on the air. So I actually, by the way, I talked to Chris Martin about that name, and I said, do people remind you of that? He goes, every single day of my life, somebody mentions Coldplay and Chris Martin. He said years ago, the Chris Martin, the singer, got in some sort of fight with a media member, and it was all over the papers. And Chris Martin said, everyone thought it was me, and it wasn't. It was Chris Martin. So also in this discussion, I reminded Roxy that he was the one that asked me on the air several years ago, can you name a Duran Duran song after we had a Duran Duran at bat?
Yeah.
So I told him the whole story about, hungry like a wolf. Of course, I called it angry like a wolf on the air. But here's the kicker to the whole thing. It was a nationally televised game, Jeff. So apparently the people at Petco Park who run the scoreboard and the sound system were listening to the game. So after this ridiculous back and forth between Roxy and I, in between innings, on comes Hungry Like a Wolf. And then comes a Coldplay song. Of course, Roxy has to ask me, do you know what they're playing? Of course, I didn't, but they actually ran it in the PA system at Petco Park because we had talked about it in some idiotic fashion on the air.
Somebody deserves to get a raise at Petco Park. That's for sure. Dad, to go back to the names of Chris Martin, did I mention this on the podcast yet? I talked to country singer Riley Green, and I asked him if he met Riley Green,
right?
The all-star Detroit Tigers outfielder, right? And he said, yeah. He said he was taking BP, and I can't remember if he was in Detroit or if the Tigers were elsewhere, right? And they got put together, and they both talked about how they constantly get tagged on social media in each other's stuff, right? So it'll be like, can't wait for the Riley Green concert tonight, and it's somebody pounding a Miller Lite in a parking lot. And Riley Green is like, well, I'm in Seattle this weekend. I don't think they're coming to see me play. And vice versa all the time. They're like, oh, Riley Green's my favorite Tiger. And it's Riley Green, the country singer, which is so great.
Well, we're going to have to come up again, Jeff, with the all-music team from Major League Baseball. Chris Martin, Riley Green, Kenny Rogers, all that stuff. So
well, our GM will be Chris Young.
Right, Chris Young.
The country singer, Chris Young.
Yeah, I saw Chris Young this weekend. We had a great time. Talked to all the Rangers.
Is he still really tall?
Yeah. This was so great. Rick Sutcliffe showed up. Rick Sutcliffe is one of my dear friends. He's with his grandson, Ryder, who is 12 years old. He brings him on the field, and there I am standing on the field at Petco Park. And this happens every time I see Sut for the first time, whether it was yesterday or a year ago. So he takes Ryder and says, come here. And we have a height off between me and Ryder. And this is what Sut does every single time he finds the shortest person, in this case, a 12-year-old, to have a height off with me. Of course, Ryder won by about a half an inch, which is not good for me. But a few minutes later, I watched Rick Sutcliffe, and he talked to Chris Martin, who is taller than Sut. And Sut has shrunk, by the way. He says he's under 6'7" now because he's gotten so old, like I have shrunk. And then he spoke to Bob Scanlon, who's a broadcaster, former pitcher for the Padres. Bob Scanlon is 6'8". And then Chris Young rolled by. He's 6'10". So Sut, three straight people he spoke to were all taller than him. And I just went up to him and said, this is every day of my life. How does it feel that you just spoke to three guys who are taller than you? And Sut just laughed out loud. It was great.
Right, and he just stepped right over you. Right. He didn't even see you there.
Of course not. Poor Sut. So we had a great time in San Diego.
It sounds like it, Dad. I know you saw our cousin Mary Shavodian out there, which was great. She made a sign for the broadcast. I'm not sure if you saw it. It did not make it on the broadcast, unfortunately, but it was a big, big shout out to you. So we're going to give her a shout out here on the podcast. I saw
the banner, Jeff, okay? But there's 0% chance I'm going to call my producer and say, hey, let's hone in on section 132 so we can get a poster of me on the air. Not a chance that would ever happen.
I wanted her to write something like, if you like Tim Kurkjian, you should meet his son. Same voice. All right, let's jump right into the takeaways, Dad. What do you have? Obviously, we talked about the series you were covering, but anything else, takeaways in Major League
we're
Baseball?
going to start with San Diego because
Let's do it.
Manny Machado is gunning for 2,000 hits. Okay, when we left him on Sunday night, so we can't do this on Monday, but he had 1,998 hits. We were desperately hoping he'd get 2,000 on Sunday Night Baseball. He didn't. By the way, Jeff, I went looking for guys who came really close to 2,000 hits and never made it. Ian Kinsler got 1,999 hits, missed by one. Ian Kinsler, by the way, played for the Padres and the Rangers, which is the game we had. And as I've told you before, Jeff, Ian Kinsler's dad was a prison warden. So I asked him many times, like, what was that like? He looked at me and he goes, we had a lot of interesting dinner time conversation when my dad came home from work. My gosh. So Machado is going to get 3,000 hits someday. He's also got a real shot someday to hit 500 homers. No third baseman has ever had 3,000 hits and 500 homers. You know, he just turned 33 years old, Jeff. And he told me the other day, I feel better now than I did when I was 22 years old. And Mike Schilt, the manager of the Padres, told me, he said, second half of last year and first half of this year, this is the best we've ever seen Manny play. So it's possible he's getting even better as he goes along. And he's going to the Hall of Fame, Jeff, if he keeps up this kind of pace. People need to know that. Plus, he is an elite defensive third baseman who's been lost a little bit among Matt Chapman and Nolan Arenado, but Manny Machado can really play third base. Second thing, Jeff, for the takeaways, and you know, we don't bash people on this show. It's just I'm just too old to be doing that anymore. And not like I ever enjoy doing it, but I'm not sure what the Nationals did this week. They fired their manager, Dave Martinez, who was under fire. And I hate to say this, but I at least understand why that was the case. But they also fired Mike Rizzo, their general manager, and they did it, you know, like 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks from the Major League draft. Mike Rizzo is a really good general manager, but what he excels at is young players drafting and developing. Nobody should be in charge of the number one pick in the draft more than Mike Rizzo, and they fired him this close to the Major League draft. I did not understand that. Do you understand that from a distance, Jeff?
No, I don't. And we've talked ad nauseum about how the Nationals won the Juan Soto trade. I mean, they brought in so many great players, including James Wood, who is now a first-time All-Star this year, among many other players that are going to build the future of this team. And, Dad, we knew they weren't going to be contenders. Let's be honest, right? We all hoped they would maybe come close to 500 this year, but we all knew they had a hot finish to last season. But we all pretty much knew, hey, this is not going to be their year. We're rebuilding. I found it very strange. And the funniest part, Dad, my buddy Jensen and his fiance Amy, who are going to get married actually on my birthday, August the 9th of next month, they were at the game texting us photos in the group saying, yeah, go Nats. Like, this is so fun. And then right after the game, this news comes out and I sent it to my group. I said, Jensen, what did you do?
That's so good, Jeff. And by the way, I just noticed this. Manny Machado's Major League debut came in 2012 on your birthday, August the 9th. How about that? Love that.
This is right. Yeah, August 9th.
All right.
That's how you remember my birthday, right?
Right. Sorry I missed your birthday that year, Jeff. I had to go to Manny Machado's Major League debut instead of celebrate with my son. I didn't do that, and you know it. Okay.
That's not true.
All right. A couple other things. I saw the Rangers, who played the Padres, and I must say, I'm really confused by the Rangers, too. I'm the dope that said at the beginning of the year, I think they have the best offense in the American League, and they have one of the worst offenses in baseball, and I don't understand it. So, Jeff, they are leading the major leagues in ERA. They have the fewest errors in the major leagues, and as of this taping, they are 2 games under 500. So get this, Frank from the Elias is on vacation this week, so I called his brother John from the Elias.
I jinxed it. remember on Thursday, I said, what would you ever do if Frank from the Elias went on vacation? And then he went on vacation.
So I called his brother John, and John stepped in and helped me out. So I said, John, how many teams have finished a season under 500 when they led the major leagues in ERA and made the fewest errors? So he writes me back, 10 teams since 1913, which is when earned runs became official, have led in ERA and had the fewest errors. All 10 of them finished above 500. And Jeff, I mean, way over 500. And 5 of those 10 won 100 games. The point is, what the Rangers are doing makes absolutely no sense. Now, it's obvious they haven't hit at all. Jeff, as of this taping, they had 25 games this year where they scored fewer than 2 runs. So that's 1 or 0. That tied the White Sox for the most such games this year. They've been shut out 10 times. Only the Guardians and the Pirates have been shut out more times than the Rangers. I don't quite understand, because I watch them and think this is a good hitting team, but right now this is not a good hitting team. But the other guy I saw, Jeff, was Wyatt Langford, who we all know about. He's a big, strong, athletic left fielder. He made 2 great catches on Saturday. He hits the ball unbelievably hard. And the way he runs, Jeff, he's a big guy who could really run. Corey Seager of the Rangers, I said, what kind of athlete is this guy? And he looks at me and he said, Wyatt Langford runs angry. I love that expression for a big man who can fly. He runs angry. So I got a good look at the Rangers, and I'm still confused why they don't score more runs.
Well, did you get to see our friend Brett Boone?
Oh, yeah. I had many, many talks with Brett Boone. Now, I talked to Brett Boone in Baltimore. I saw the Rangers twice last week. We had long talks and many more. And when I saw him in San Diego, he just looked at me, typical Brett Boone, and said, what are you following us around or something? And the last thing he said to me, Jeff, I swear, when I left him on Sunday night, knowing I'm not going to see him for a while, he said, tell Jeff I said hello. How about that? Brett Boone not only remembered your name, but he remembered to make sure that he said hello to you. Pretty cool.
Well, that means a lot. And we did his podcast, I think during the off season, if I'm not mistaken. And he did a great cross promotion for Is This a Great Game or What? And now he's the hitting coach of the Texas Rangers.
Right. And it takes a while. It takes a while to figure out being a coach in the big leagues, especially when you're a hitting coach, trying to navigate through the pitching that everybody sees today. It's just ridiculous. Okay, Jeff, All-Star Week, everybody, we just had the All-Star starters named and then the reserve named. And we're not going to get too much into that because so many changes happen. And the guy that you say, that's the biggest snub, we're not going to deal with that because with all the additions and subtractions, seemingly a lot of extra guys make the All-Star team. But what I really like the most, Jeff, is the guys that make it for the first time. The look on their face and the stories they tell when they make the All-Star team for the first time. And in the original voting, which came on Sunday, 19 players made the All-Star team for the first time. And one was Jason Adam, a relief pitcher for the Padres, who's had a great year as a middle reliever. And it's so refreshing to see a middle reliever, not a closer, a middle guy who's having a great year, make the All-Star team. So I said, so when did the call come? So he said, well, since we were playing Sunday night baseball, I got to go to church with my family. So he's in church, but he's got his cell phone on, and he gets a call from Mike Schilt, the manager, and his wife, God bless her, looks down at the phone and goes, oh my God, we've been traded. That's what she thought in church, that her husband had been traded during a church service. So in a quick break in the service, Jason Adam ran outside and called Mike Schilt to say, what's going on? And he said, you made the All-Star team. So just when he thought it might be something really bad, it was something really good.
That is so great. I mean, she was definitely saying a lot of prayers when she thought it was a trade. Right. Instead, it's the first of hopefully many all-star picks. That's very
And
exciting.
as far as first-time stories go, Jeff, I have a million of them, but one of my favorites is Jeff Cirillo, who used to play for the Rockies and the Brewers. Really good hitting third baseman and a really good guy. So he makes the all-star team for the first time. So he gets on the airplane to go to the all-star game in Cleveland, and he's walking down the aisle. And this is 20 years ago, at least. I'm not even sure exactly. I would say 20 years ago. So someone on the plane looks at him and goes, "Aren't you Jeff Cirillo?" And Jeff Cirillo, who played in Milwaukee, wasn't exactly a household name, even though he's a really good hitter, looked at him and said, "Yeah, I am." And the guy says, "Aren't you going to the All-Star game?" And Jeff Cirillo goes, "Yes, I am." And the guy on the plane said, "Well, this plane is going to New York." So he was on the wrong plane. So he had to get off of the plane and get on another plane that took him to Cleveland. These are the stories I love the most. First time guys going to the All-Star game.
Dad, coming up next here on Is This a Great Game or What? We're going to roll through our Quirkjians, that of which we have some really fascinating ones that I sent over to you, including one from a high school buddy of mine about getting swept and getting shut out. And we also have a brand new Team Tim for you, so end this date in baseball history. It's all coming up next on Is This a Great Game or What? All right, Dad, the Quirkjians. What do you got for us today?
Well, this was thrown to me by you. I had already researched it, but Colson Montgomery of the White Sox, shortstop, his first major league plate appearance was a catcher's interference. By the way, you score that no time at bat, error, catcher. And by the way, as you know, Jeff, let's say you hit the catcher's mitt with your bat, and that's catcher's interference, all right? But if you hit the catcher's mitt with your bat and hit the ball over the fence, let's say, you can nullify the penalty if you like and take the home run, okay? And by the way, if you run to first base and decide, okay, I'm nullifying the penalty because I just hit a single to right field, and you get thrown out going to second, you're not allowed to nullify that and go back to home plate. So isn't that interesting? So he's the first player since 1961. That's as far back as the Elias could go accurately to have his first plate appearance in the major leagues result in a catcher's interference. Do you find that interesting?
I find that very interesting, and I even went one step further, Dad, and I wanted to see if he was the first ever Colson to play Major League Baseball, and he is the first ever Colson, Colson, to play Major League Baseball, but there was a Lloyd Colson who pitched for the New York Yankees for one season in 1970 and only played in one game, gave up 3 hits in 2 innings and 1 earned run. So he's already off to a better start than Lloyd Colson. And that was my Colson deep dive. Not much there. I looked for everything, Dad. I wanted them to be born on the same day. I wanted them to be from the same state. I wanted them to be drafted by the same team. Nothing, Dad. Nothing came up.
There are dead ends everywhere when you do this research, but when one works out, it's just really, really fun. And by the way, catcher's interference. Pete Rose for years was the all-time leader in catcher's interferences. I'll be close on this. I think it was 31 times he reached on catcher's interference. And Pete was so good. This was what Pete, I know, would do. He would be behind in the count against a really good pitcher. And he had the ability to say, well, maybe if I'm just a little late on the swing, I can hit the catcher's mitt and I can get on base again by an error and no time at bat for Pete. That would be good. But he got passed by Jacoby Ellsbury, who you remember, of course, was a really good player for the Red Sox. He passed him. I think he finished with 32. So they actually keep track of that stuff. It's just amazing to me.
Shout out Frank from the Alliance.
Yes. Also, who was the high school friend? Ben Kelly?
Ben Kelly, whose parents, mind you, listen to the podcast, especially his mother is a big member of this family, loves Is This a Great Game or What? And, my text message with my buddies, it's called Ball is Life, which is 12 of us guys that grew up together. We're all in a fantasy group, fantasy football league. And trust me, baseball is the last ball that is usually spoken about in Ball is Life. It's usually basketball, football, even some tennis, some golf. Baseball will come up from time to time. Well, Ben, who lives in the Pittsburgh area, went to Duquesne. He sent this over saying that he can't believe that the Pittsburgh Pirates got swept in a series in which they were shut out and then swept a team in a series in which they shut out the other team back to back. And I texted you, I said, this has to be a first, Dad.
Well, there have been multiple situations where a team has been involved in 6 consecutive shutouts, but this is indeed the first time ever that any team through 3 straight shutouts, and then the next 3 games, they got shut out. So what the Pirates did has never been done in baseball history. And Jeff, this is why we love it so much. I mean, just look at the modern era, 1900 to 1925. This has never happened 125 years. And good for Ben Kelly for pointing that out. I mean, I was all over it from the beginning. Like, how weird is this? But it's so good that our listeners and your friends are interested in this stuff. This is what makes baseball go, is that people look at a box score, slap their forehead and go, how many times has this happened? That's how I think every day of my life, Jeff. And now your buddies and you and all sorts of people think that way. It's really, really fun.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to be happier, that Ben Kelly got a part of a Quirkjian or that Jensen got the general manager and the manager fired at the Nationals for appearing at a game. They're both very involved in this episode.
Right. All right, Jeff. So for the Padres, Kyle Hart pitched really effectively on Sunday. He pitched in Korea. And the day before, I had met some guy, a guy I'd never met in my life, and he had just gotten back from Korea. And he told me that he went to a game in Korea and he went to the bathroom and he's going to the bathroom in the urinal and he looks at the wall behind the urinal and there are Yogi Berra isms all across that wall right above Yogi-isms in Korea. So while this guy is going to the bathroom, he looks up and there's a Yogi-ism. Nobody goes to that restaurant anymore. It's too crowded. It was on above the urinal in Korea. Do you find that surprising?
I mean, he's known for his very famous lines. It ain't over till it's over. That's the easy one. But my favorite one is he would say baseball is 90% mental and the other half is physical.
Right. Well, Yogi was an all-timer for all of those things, but he was smarter than the average bear, that's for sure. Okay.
Nice one.
Right. Noah Davis pitched in relief for the Dodgers last week and had this line: 1 1/3, 6 hits, 10 runs, all earned, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. So the last time a reliever gave up 10 runs in a game was Kyle Barraclough in 2023. And the only interesting part about that, it was his last appearance in a major league game.
No.
And, he had a decent career. He was pretty good for a short time. But imagine the last game you ever pitched. You go an inning and a third and give up 10 runs. You would want to maybe try one more time to make up for that. And he never got the chance. I found this interesting, Jeff. Michael Busch of the Cubs hit 3 home runs on July the 4th. So, there are all sorts of great things that happen on holidays. So he is the 6th player to hit 3 home runs in a game on July the 4th. And 3 of those 6 players played for the Cubs. They did this against the Cardinals at Wrigley Field. And that's what Michael Busch did. So what are the odds of that, Jeff? It only happened. I'm surprised it happened even 6 times, but half of the times it happened by a Cub guy at home and they were playing the Cardinals.
I mean, 111 years of Wrigley Field and their number one rival. Was it a tradition at some point for the Cardinals to come to Wrigley on the 4th of July? Because I don't think there's anything more American than Yankees, Red Sox, Cardinals, Cubs.
Right.
I mean, this is so beautiful.
Yeah, Whitey Herzog used to always tell me that Cardinals-Cubs was the best rivalry in baseball because of how long they've been around and because how close in proximity they are. I told you I made a speech at the Jefferson Library many years ago, and I really was struck by how many people I met there, husbands and wives who lived in the same house, and one is a Cub fan and one is a Cardinal fan, and somehow they find a way to get along. All right, Jeff.
I don't know if I could ever do
Yeah.
that.
Jeff, you remember, well, there was a really cool play in a minor league game. Not a cool play, but a strange play. So there was a ground ball to the shortstop. There were two runners on, and the runner on second fielded the ball in order to prevent a double play from happening. Now, do you remember that we talked about this earlier on the podcast? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think we talked about it in terms of the Yankees. Did Anthony Rizzo do it in like a spring training game or something where he kicked a ball running to third to prevent a double play of sorts, but tried to make it look like he wasn't doing it on purpose, in which he did sell it to the umpire? Because if you do that, then the runner is automatically out who is struck by the batted ball.
Right.
But then the ball is
Dead.
So it doesn't give the opportunity for a double play. So honestly, I know coaches, and we talked about this earlier in the season, are telling their players, do this.
Right.
If you can get away with it, do it.
But as we know, Jeff, what we said early, in one of the earlier podcasts, Don Hoke, former Pirates third baseman, was on base in almost the same situation, and he caught a ground ball to prevent a double play from happening. And that's when the umpires were given the leeway to say, you can't catch a baseball in order to prevent it. So the umpires are now allowed to call that a double play. Don Hoke would be out because the ball hit him, but the batter would be out too because the umpire can say, you can't do this in a major league game. So it happened again the other day, and I just found it interesting that we were talking about this just a little more than a month ago when it happened in a major league game like 60 years ago.
Dad, it's up there with me with an infielder purposefully dropping a ball when they notice that a runner doesn't run to first on what should be an infield fly rule. You know what I mean? Where they're watching, if the batter throws a fit and throws his bat down and runs back to the dugout, you drop that ball, you turn two, because now it's a force.
Right.
I love those heads-up baseball plays. It's very smart.
Last Quirkjian, Jeff. I took a 5.5 hour flight to San Diego, and frankly, I got a little bored. So I just messed around on my computer looking at all these guys who used to play for the Padres. And I ran across a pitcher who I remember. He pitched for the Padres in 2017, maybe another year, but I think it was just 2017. His name is Odrisamer Despaigne. That's his name. Okay. And it's a very bizarre name. So I just got to looking at this name, and for some reason, you know how much I love anagrams. So I looked at this guy's name, and from his name, from the letters in his name, you can spell San Diego Padres from the letters in his name. And he pitched for the Padres. How great is that?
Really? Yeah. I love that. That is so perfect. Yeah. That has to be a first. It has to be a first that a player's name spelled out the entire name of a team.
Right. Just spell it, Jeff. Odrisamer Despaigne. Out of that, you get San Diego Padres. Love that.
Is this also when you got bored on your San Diego flight? Is this when you created your team, Tim? Because you still can't figure out how to watch a show on your phone unless I'm on the flight with you?
By the way, Jeff, I was all ready to get online on the plane, and both to and from San Diego, the internet was not working. So I had all that time. Yes, I was.
Did they said it on the plane?
They
it wasn't
said
working? Oh.
It was disabled. So I started to do it, and the stewardess says, "Don't bother, it doesn't work." So that was a shame.
That's frustrating.
So those are the Quirkjians, Jeff.
This date in baseball history, Dad. What do you have for July the 8th?
Right, so normally we have about 5 or 6 of these, Jeff, but I just decided to keep it to one. Ken Patterson, former White Sox reliever, was born on this date in 1964. And I remember a conversation I had with him once. He played in the 90s, Jeff. Anyone who played in the 90s had a great sense of humor. They're all always willing to share their stories. So he was a geology major from Baylor. Okay, so you meet a geology major from Baylor, you have to ask, like, what was that like? What are your teammates like? And he's a reliever. So I said, so, what do you guys talk about in the bullpen when you're a geology major? And he said, he says, I can pick up a rock and show them whatever the rock is, and nobody even cares. And then he said, I can tell everyone what the earth looked like before the continental drift. And my teammates would look at me and said, what are you talking about? So I just found it odd. There's a really smart guy who knows everything about geology sitting around in a bullpen, and no one appreciates anything that he knows about geology.
Honestly, that rocks. That was a great story.
All right, enough of
Dad, I have a matchup for you that I wanted to get to.
Yes.
So the Phillies and the Giants on Tuesday night, the day that this airs, Taijuan Walker will be facing Robbie Ray, making it the Ray Walker matchup. And Ray Walker was a singer, a member of the singing group, the Jordanaires, and he made his Grand Ole Opry debut, the country music mecca, in 2023. Kind of crazy,
Ray
right?
Walker. That's right.
The Ray Walker matchup.
All right. That's great, Jeff. We're always looking for matchups, pitching matchups, hitting matchups, pitcher catcher, all that stuff. It really keeps me going. I love that stuff.
And I mean, there was only one other one that I wasn't sure if it would work, but I'm going to jump at it. Okay. Lauer and Hauser.
Right.
Blue Jays, White Sox. Right. I mean, a rhyming matchup for Wednesday night. Not bad.
Not bad, Jeff. I'm proud.
Kind of a near rhyme. It's like an Eminem rhyme,
Jeff, I'm proud that you're wasting your time like I've wasted so much of my time. But good for you. You're getting good at this, Jeff. I've corrupted you so badly that you're looking at box scores and pitching lines differently than you ever have.
You have cursed me. All right, what is the team, Tim, you have for today?
Okay, this is in honor of Brady House. He's been up in the big leagues for several weeks now with the Nationals. So he's our third baseman on the all-structure team. This is a gigantic stretch, Jeff, as they all are. So everyone on the team is some form of structure, okay? First baseman is Ryan Church. Second baseman is my favorite, Shed Long, S-H-E-D. He's the second baseman. Brady House is the third baseman. Ernie Banks, multiple Banks, is the shortstop. Ernie Banks started out as a shortstop. Roland Office, one of my all-time favorite names.
Oh, that's a really good one.
He's one of the outfielders. Jimmy Hall. I don't have to explain this to you, Jeff. John Castle. And our catcher is Billy Mills. You make things in a mill.
Yeah.
I know you know all this. When I have to explain it, that means the list stinks, but that's okay. I got to finish.
We still love you.
I got to finish it anyway. Josh Towers is one of the pitchers. Austin Kitchen came up with the Marlins last year, and Doc Ellis. Doc Ellis, of course, threw a no-hitter in the major leagues, was a really good pitcher. And our utility guy is Rocky Bridges. So that's the all.
Can I add a pitcher?
Yes.
Matt Barnes?
Yes, there you go.
A barn, right? That's a structure.
Jeff, really good.
I thought you were going to go Austin Barnes as your catcher, so I didn't want to give it away. But Matt Barnes retired, I believe, right?
Yeah, Matt Barnes doesn't pitch anymore in the big leagues. I should have gone with Austin Barnes. You're right. Jeff, all right.
No, you didn't need to go with him. It was great.
All right, Jeff, here's what we'll do next week. You come up with the team, Tim. Okay, and I'll write some song to music and with lyrics and all that stuff like you do every day on your radio show. Bad idea?
Probably a bad idea. I mean, I could do the all-singer team.
Well, all right. I'm going to challenge you to do the all-singer team, Jeff, okay? Let's see how you do. And again, I've already given you a few of them. We've already discussed a few. The hard part, Jeff, is getting a player at each position. Okay, you can come up with we've already mentioned like 3 pitchers who share a name with some sort of musical artist. So, but finding a catcher and a first baseman, that is the challenge of Team Tim.
We're going to make it happen, Dad. All right, so tomorrow on the show, we have Scott Bradley, former Major League catcher and very good Major League player as well. But now he's made really his mark on college baseball. He's Princeton's head baseball coach, Dad. He has been a friend of yours for a long time, and he talks about Ken Griffey Jr. He talks about the players that came through his program, including the aforementioned Chris Young, who got about 9 mentions on the show today. And I really thought it was inspiring, Dad, to hear his perspective when it comes to youth sports as well. And I think it's really great for you to stick around. It'll be on the feed tomorrow, Scott Bradley. You're excited too, right, Dad?
Yes, because he talks all about Major League Baseball, but he knows everything about college baseball. And I've never heard anyone who's got a better look at Little League Baseball, what we should be teaching, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, than Scott Bradley. And then on Wednesday, Jeff, we are going to be doing the podcast from Povich Field in Bethesda, Maryland for we're going to be there with the big train for a day. It's going to be really, really fun this week. And it's going to have a bit of a college atmosphere because we're going to be at a college wood bat league game. And of course, we've got the draft coming up. So we're very much in keeping with college baseball. And that's why we had Scott Bradley on tomorrow.
And the Big Train Game episode, you'll hear that on Thursday right here on the feed. So thank you so much for listening. And of course, thank you for being a part of our family.